project under consideration that's really in the news right now, and that's the extension of this green line that goes all the way into Eden Prairie. And I see that as another investment in equity.
Met Council Chair Susan Haig. The Southwest Light Rail project has engaged community input for more than a decade. But little has been reported about Eden Prairie, Minnetonka, Hopkins, St. Louis Park, and especially North Minneapolis. Regional news media has obsessed on the controversial routing of light rail alongside existing freight rail through the Kenilworth corridor in Minneapolis. The noise has been about nearby homes and popular bike and canoe view sheds, and politics. The southern apron of the north side will boast 4 light rail stations. They will directly link North Minneapolis to the southwest suburbs, the university, and St. Paul. Learning what North Minneapolis expects from these stations, light rail, and future bus service was the charge of a public forum held on April 1. Congressman Keith Ellison hosted the event. He began by referencing a Martin Luther King speech delivered a half-century ago.
He said, "Transit systems have become a genuine civil rights issue, and a valid one, because the layout of rapid transit systems determines the accessibility to jobs to the black community." That's what he said. From the start of the civil rights movement, transit was central to the struggle. As you may recall, organizing of the sleeping car porters to the Montgomery bus boycott. These civil rights issues started around issues of transit and transportation. And still, we're facing serious transit equity issues here in the Twin Cities today. Low to moderate income households spend about 42% of the total annual income on transportation.
The Minneapolis Regional Chamber has been actively engaged in transportation and transit. Well, I've been here 11 years, longer than I've been here. In fact, Sue Haig talked about the Green Line, the Central Corridor. We formed a partnership with the St. Paul Area Chamber 10 years ago to move the business voice for the Central Corridor. We actually knew it was going to cost money, it was going to cost business taxes, and yet we still did it. And a few years ago, 2 years ago, we put forth or shared in the idea of a new half-cent sales tax which would impact business greatly in order to keep transit and transportation moving. So why do we do this? Business people are supposed to be smart about money. Sometimes people say we're too smart about money. We do it because we need this transportation system the same way your body needs a circulatory system. Even Governor Ventura, I should say even, he knew we needed a system. He used to say, it's a system, we need a system. And think how many years ago that was, and we're still trying to get the legs of that system together. So we have lobbied heavily to do this. And why do we do it? One, equity is the hot new word, but equity's always meant everybody in. Shantara and I worked on everybody in. Everybody should be playing in this game of working in the metro area to further themselves, to further their families, and to further the overall region. Well, how can you be in if you can't get to work? Sue told us 67% of the people in 94 million rides, 67% of those are people going to work. 13% are people getting ready to go to work because they're going to education so they can get the best possible job. This is critical for the business community and critical for all of you and all of us. Attraction. If you followed the demographics at all, we did see that last 3 years we added 100,000 people to the Minneapolis-St. Paul market. Anybody's commute get easier? Shocking, isn't it? It got harder, and it's going to continue to get harder if we don't keep having options for people to go to work. We also do not have enough people to do the jobs of tomorrow. I know it sounds hard to believe today when we know people that are out of work or are underserved by work with part-time jobs, but in the next 5 or 6 years, we will not have enough qualified workers for those jobs. And then we need to bring people here that don't live in Minneapolis-St. Paul marketplace now. And we need those millennials, we need the 25, 35-year-olds to come here, and what brings them? Options. Work options, play options, transportation options. So if we don't have those options, plenty of other cities do, and plenty of other cities are building more quickly than we are to make those options happen. So we back Southwest, we back to Central, we have been backing Southwest from the beginning. Our plea is, elected officials, many in this room, let's just figure out how to get it done. get this line going so we can service all those workers that want to work, that are in our city and want to go to the burbs. And frankly, I don't mind if the burbs come in and spend money in our city, because that gives us more tax money to use right here.
I'd like to look at things in the best way that we can make it achievable. And I'm hoping that that's what this conversation is about. How we can not just talk up here, but how do we really create the access that we all need in this community? It's a shame, and I think it's a crime, that the congressman can quote from Dr. King and it can still be relevant to us today. 50 years ago. It's a shame and it's a crime that we can talk about equity, but we can still understand how somehow when we talk about equity and equitable decisions, somewhere in the line, you know, the spigot gets closed off and it doesn't quite reach us. Y'all know who I mean by us, right?
Yeah.
Hey, okay, I'm just trying to see if we have a couple of people in the room. Somehow, whenever we get to communities that have been disenfranchised, that need the investment more than others, we run up on obstacles and problems from many sources in many places. I think it's time that we begin to correct those obstacles and those problems that are in the way, because yes, we need a viable transit system and transportation system in North Minneapolis. We do. I advocate for that. But you know what we also need? We need the economic engine that is generated by such a system in our communities as well.
That's right.
The transit system is going to bring in, you know, a few $1 billion here. But then the economic engine that's going to run alongside and cooperate with, because it is in our neighborhood, is going to provide the sustainability and the access that we need to truly be the equitable communities that we need. So one of the things that I think we need is, I think we need my good friend Commissioner Haig here to talk with my other good friend's wife, Mayor Hodges, about how we get around these obstacles. I'll go through them. If we miss this opportunity, we miss a key strategy that we need to make the investments to North Minneapolis to connect us, yes, to jobs, but also to wealth. We don't need to just be getting money in our pockets. We need to be putting money in the bank and revitalizing the pieces that we've allowed. All of us are responsible for the deterioration and destruction of our community. It's time for us to build it up, to recognize the obstacles are there, and be willing to have the courage to stand up and make sure that we overcome whatever the obstacles are, so that we can get this needed investment that's, yes, going to happen because of these transit systems, because of the light rail coming in through here, but yes, also is going to happen because of the economic engine that is going to come alongside to support the transit system. Because business people, they recognize when you got transportation, that's money for them. They know that. Let's make sure it happens. Whatever happens after we leave this room, let's not stop. Let's stay engaged. The commissioner is here. A few folks from Met Council is here. Your council people is here. Let's make sure that we're the wind behind their back to ensure that this economic engine comes here and, yes, doesn't cut us off, but actually cuts us in to a huge piece of the pie that we all deserve.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
As a community, when we build this 21st century transit system, we not only create good jobs for workers building the light rail line, we create economic development for the whole Twin Cities. But our cities are struggling to get this Southwest light rail line done. If the Southwest stops, we stop our transit system just after it started. If Southwest stops, Botno won't happen. I would urge everyone here to call your city council member, call your mayor, and urge them to support the Southwest light rail. Urge them to get it done. If our transit system stops, we will lose the opportunity to connect our communities. If our transit system stops, the north side is left behind. If our transit system stops, we'll lose the opportunity to work together to build an economy that works for all of us.
After the panelists spoke, the public mic was handed over to others. Most but not all were from North Minneapolis.
Money runs the show in this country, and if we build something through North Minneapolis like this green line, people will come. Power structure, primarily white in this country, do not necessarily understand how the community feels.
that we need to make sure that there are going to be businesses and some economic growth and not just a pass-through for people looking out the window of a train that's going by.
Where does the money come from? How much does it cost? Where do you have that break-even point for the investment and what we get out of it, assuming that we can get some of the things out of it that we've been asking for?
50% comes from the federal funding partner, the federal government, Federal Transit Administration. 30% comes from a quarter-cent sales tax raised by 5 counties called the Counties Transit Improvement Board. Another 10% comes from the Hennepin County Regional Rail Authority from a property tax levy. And then the final 10% comes from the state of Minnesota, probably either through, we hope someday, a dedicated sales tax for transit or the motor vehicle sales tax, one of those 2 sources. It's $1.6 billion.
My name is Gary Cunningham, and I'm on the Metropolitan Council. I represent District 7, which you're sitting in. And I grew up here, been a part of this community all my life, and I want to say a couple things about this. I think that the Southwest line is a good thing. I think it makes sense to have a line that's going through to take people from St. Paul all the way out to Eden Prairie. My question, in part, there's jobs right now in Eden Prairie that we are not getting hired for. There's jobs right here in downtown Minneapolis that we're not getting hired for. And unless there's agreement that we're going to get hired and we're going to be part of the equation for equity and justice in this community, I'd say it's great.
That's right.
So what are the guarantees, what are the commitments from the county, from the Metropolitan Council, from the city, to ensure that economic opportunities happening here? Right now, Hennepin County, Metropolitan Council, and the city of Minneapolis are studying a streetcar on Broadway. Now we know the Botno line came through, and they're putting it right outside here on Olson Highway, but that's not the heart of our community. And so we need transit options right in the heart of our community, and we need an agreement that in fact we're going to get economic opportunity right in the heart of our community.
I always think, who do you expect to do it if you're not going to do it? I mean, I'm not, and with love. I mean that we've got to get out of this idea that there's someone else out there whose responsibility is to organize us. We're organizing ourselves, right? And Gary has made an excellent question about equity. I think that's an excellent point.
It's the right question.
So excellent of a point that we sort of, we need to engage that point. I'll tell you that I'm committed to it.
All right.
I'm in.
I'm in.
And we got 2.
Who else is in?
I'm in. We got 4, we got 5, we talked about, the young lady right there said 32% minority hiring goal, 6% women. What is, let me ask you a question. What is 32% times 0? 0. Yeah. So if the Southwest line doesn't happen, just saying.
What'd you say, Mr. Congressman? I don't know if I heard you.
I just said if it doesn't happen, I want to say for the record, I have no, as a federal person, I have no role in routing. That is a local decision. I let the locals handle that, and they're going to handle that. But my point is, we've got to say we're going to do it. That's what I say.
We're totally isolated if you don't have a vehicle, and it involves multiple transfers. The idea that we get this rail line built and I can take a bus down Penn and my neighbors can take a bus down Penn and be connected to options in the suburbs and in the lakes part of the city, I mean, it's a no-brainer. I understand some of the concerns that other folks in Kenwood and other places have. I get that. I think we're all sensitive to that. But if we're talking about equity, that has to mean something. And that means connecting this part of the city to other parts of the city and to the larger metro area. It's a very simple decision to make. Either we agree that we're one city or we're not, and I hope we are.
If the Met Council starts to send buses up and down Penn that connect to the Penn station, it will connect to those communities in a way that no other route will do. Certainly not a route through Uptown, which is the only other option we've heard about. If you run buses up and down different corridors on the north side, you will be connecting people to the light rail. We have a chance to turn what is now a wasteland, okay, into a promised land of jobs and economic development that will benefit the North South.
Something like 75 to 80% of our transit riders in this region take the bus, and one of the best ways to improve everyone's daily life that way is to increase operation funding for the bus. So you can increase frequencies, increase span of service. These are things that are going to be really important for people's everyday lives, and it covers the whole region, not just one corridor or two corridors. Thank you.
There are catalysts for developing this area. It's not just the jobs that will come when the line is built. We are dedicated to make sure that that area is developed for businesses, for people who live here now, for other businesses that want to come in, so that we have jobs and we have choice.
We need to see more stuff like this, and when you do set this line coming through here, can we have more ability to reach these transits? Because you have the train that goes out way up north, but it's very hard to get to the stops that are there for the train.
The walkability and safety of accessing transit, and the safety on the transit lines. That Metro Transit Police were not very friendly or tolerant or culturally competent in working with our communities. People didn't feel safe. You know, it's not just about getting to jobs and getting to education, but it's also getting home. And so it's what do our sidewalks look like? What does the street lighting look like? And things of that sort for people to access it as well.
I really think that, unfortunately, a lot of the discussion of this light rail line has had to do with Kenwood. I think really we should be really smart and take a moment and really ask tough questions, which is, will the alignment as it is drawn going to serve what everyone in the room is talking about? My concern as a designer and talking to other people who are in urban planning and transit design is that the route does not go in the right place. It's just not going into the heart of the need. If we're going to spend all this money, it's better to hit the pause button and spend it properly and deliver what everybody in this room wants. Everybody wants this, but the design is not going to deliver it.
I'm with the Sierra Club. For those of you that don't know, it's the oldest and largest environmental organization in the country, and we have thousands of members up and down this corridor, depending on which corridor you look at. We don't have a position on the route, but we do want this project to happen. And we are also at the table with Shantara and others because we want this project to happen from an equity lens as well. That first and last mile of any transit project is really critical for how you get to that train. And we're just really concerned and hopeful that those important details are carefully considered as we plan these station areas. So that's what I wanted to get out there tonight.
And the best thing that we can do for those of us who want to see this project move forward and connect people up to equitable opportunities is to encourage the elected officials, the folks at the Met Council, at all levels of government to find a way to say yes. There's got to be a way to keep moving this project forward. If this project doesn't go forward, the whole network and system of a comprehensive transit plan goes down the tubes, goes back probably 10 years, maybe more. We lose our place in the line. Southwest has a special position with the feds. And what we really are trying to build, I think, collectively, is a comprehensive transit system that creates a connectivity that's unheard of in our metro region, that we haven't had since we had a streetcar system that connected the Twin Cities up to the suburbs. So the best thing that we can do is really put the pressure and the focus on the folks that will be negotiating. That's the county, that's the city, and that's the Met Council. But also have that long-term view. Also, what the previous gentleman said, we need to build out our regular route bus system. The amenities that folks enjoy in the suburbs ought to be enjoyed in the inner city. So it's about a whole comprehensive, complete system, not just one line.
Hennepin County Commissioner Peter McLaughlin chairs a regional transit funding board and sits on the Southwest Light Rail Corridor Management Committee. The panel includes mayors and county and state transportation officials. McLaughlin had attended the Northside Forum. The forum's concerns about transit, affordable housing, small community businesses, and jobs became part of the committee's recommendations to the Met Council.
For information, reports, and news on the project, upcoming meetings, and public hearings, go to swlrt.org. That's swlrt.org. The presentation of guests and opinions on this program does not indicate endorsement by the state DFL party or DFL Senate District 48.